Treksploration.
Hello, Trekkies, and welcome back to Treksploration. I'm Albie.
And I'm Chris.
And today, we are starting a new series. We're talking about Star Trek Voyager. I'm so excited. We're talking about the pilot, episode 1 and 2, Caretaker. Chris, are you excited to talk about Voyager?
I'm so excited to talk about Voyager. It's the first time I've made it through Caretaker.
Woo!
Sort of.
Awesome. So today we're talking about season 1, episode 1 and 2, Caretaker of Star Trek Voyager, January 16th, 1995. As I understand it, it was your 35th birthday.
Yes, I learned that today. As I was putting the rundown together, I said, well, isn't that a happy coincidence?
That is. Do you remember watching it on your birthday or no?
No, I did not watch it. I can tell you for a fact that I did not watch Star Trek Voyager on my 35th birthday. I don't know what else I can tell you about my 35th birthday aside from that.
Do you remember where you were, what you're doing? You were out of college by then,
Nope.
right?
Zero memory. Yeah, I was out of college. I was married
congratulations.
at that point 11 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, don't ask me. No, I'm sorry. At that point for 1 year, 1995, right?
95, yeah.
So it was my 25th birthday, not my 35th birthday.
Oh, your 25th.
See, I don't know how to do math. I'm still bad at math. I was bad at math then. I'm bad at math now. 95 was my 25th birthday. I was married a year. I was living in my in-laws' basement.
Sounds like a Trekkie thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think at that point we had just gone out to find our first new apartment, like our first like real rental of our own place. So, but yeah, no, I was not watching any Star Trek at that point, quite frankly.
Oh, okay. Well, you were still married, right? So 95
yeah, I am
was your
now.
25th birthday? You're still married to this day.
Yeah. I'm still married to this day. Yes, 95 was my 25th birthday. I was a year out of college.
I think my 25th birthday was 2000. Does that sound about right?
Well, you're a young whippersnapper.
I guess. The year 2000, the future.
In the year 2000 was my flashlight.
I got my ring light. Writers of this were teleplay by Michael Piller. Awesome. Jerry Taylor. Very cool. Story by Rick Berman, Michael Piller, and Jerry Taylor. So they all worked together on that one.
Yes, cool. And I just want to apologize for the last show we did. I believe I said that Jerry Taylor had passed away, and the news of her demise was premature. I looked it up today to make sure I was right about that, and I was wrong about that. She's in her 80s, but she's still kicking, apparently. She's still around, doing whatever she's doing. So
yeah, I like her.
That was a foible on my part, and I apologize to Jerry Taylor and anyone who I alerted and alarmed.
People are like, Mom, are you okay? Yeah, I'm still okay. I was watching Treksploration and I heard some bad news. I wasn't sure what happened.
Yeah.
So there's really good interviews with her on this set. Do you have this set, the DVD set?
Of course, yes. Yes, I have every DVD set that you do. And of course, I don't have that set. I have no set.
It looks like isolinear chips. It's really nice. It folds out. It's pretty cool. But yeah, that's a good.
Neato.
There's not very many good copies out there. They're still, standard definition, but that's one of the cool ones. But there's a lot of cool behind the scenes little featurettes, and she's interviewed in it. Basically, they just wanted to have like a woman captain, and they wanted a woman on the creative team, so it wasn't men writing parts for women, So at least they had a voice in the room.
That was Jerry Taylor's job, was to represent all women everywhere.
All women everywhere. So
gotcha.
I think she did pretty good. We had Janeway, we had Jerry Ryan. So directed by Vinrik Colby.
I can never say it right. Yeah.
Did I?
Vinrik Colby.
Okay. The only thing I know about him is allegedly from stories told by people involved, he had an affair with Captain Janeway.
I thought you were going to say with
Kate Mulgrew.
with Jonathan Frakes.
No, because they were never there at the same time because directors. They passed in the production office, but they didn't direct the same episodes. But maybe. Yeah, there was like an affair going on in that first couple seasons, I think, with Kate Mulgrew and Winrick.
Where did you hear this? This is hearsay. This is slander, sir.
Allegedly. I want to say it was maybe in Kate Mulgrew's autobiography, or maybe one of the interviews I saw about her autobiography, Born with Teeth.
So it came from Kate herself, is what you're saying.
Yeah. They're spending 20 hours a day on the set, and things happen.
Yeah, I guess that becomes your go-to, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's there. So I think she was divorced or newly divorced. I know she had children. There was a lot that happened behind the scenes of this show. So that's
well, I mean,
interesting.
You're there for so long, so many hours. You come home, all you do is sleep, and then you got to get up in 3 hours to go back. You are essentially stranded in the Delta Quadrant, being on the set of a TV show for a season, especially a 26 episode season that had hour-long episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So
they were there just all the time. I mean, why not just have barracks there so they could, go shower and rest, come back? Yeah. I guess they had trailers, so same difference, right? A little bit more privacy.
I guess, yeah. Maybe some privacy.
All right, before we get to our first impressions, did you want to read the episode synopsis, Chris? And then we'll take an intentional tangent?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is a long synopsis. I actually did an actual episode summary here. I felt it was more appropriate. So everybody buckle in, because I'm going to be talking for a little while here. Albie, get ready with your editing tools, because I know I'm going to screw up at least once or twice, and you're going to have to make me sound very pretty, okay?
No one will ever know.
All right, so we open with a firefight between Maquis and Cardassian ships. Taking heavy damage, the human, Klingon, and Vulcan Maquis rebels seek cover in the plasma storms of the Badlands. But before you can say approaching coherent tachyon beam creating a displacement wave, the Maquis ship vanishes. Enter Captain Catherine Janeway at a Federation penal colony. She's recruiting Starfleet washout and one-time Maquis rebel Tom Paris as an advisor to help navigate the Badlands and find the missing ship. Turns out that her security officer was among the vanished. Commence hero shots of USS Voyager, docked at DS9, prepping for the rescue mission. We meet Ensign Harry Kim, getting the business from Quark until Paris walks in and saves his Quatloos. It's the start of a beautiful friendship. But Tom is a pariah to the rest of the Voyager crew, including First Officer Hoozits and Dr. No Name. Tom got 3 officers killed due to pilot error and was drummed out of the fleet. Harry's all chill with it, though. Tom guides the Voyager into the Badlands, and before you can say approaching coherent tachyon beam creating a displacement wave, they're zapped 70,000 light years away, confronted by a vast space array. The ship is a wreck, and among the casualties are the first officer and the doctor. Enter the emergency medical hologram. Beaming over to the array, the Voyager crew finds itself at a bucolic farm picnic, complete with square dancing and corn on the cob. But they soon find their way around the illusion and are abducted, alien style, with nasty stomach probes and all. 3 days later, they are sent back to the Voyager, apparently none the worse for wear, including 2 of the 3 missing Maquis, the human, whose name is Chakotay, and the Vulcan, who is Janeway's undercover security officer, Tuvok. Chakotay has beef with Tom for bringing Starfleet down on them, but that will have to wait because Harry and the other member of the Maquis crew are still missing. The array is sending energy pulses to the 4th planet in a nearby system, so they head there to continue the search. Along the way, they traverse a ship graveyard where they find a scavenger named Neelix, who offers to be their guide. Cut to Harry and the Klingon woman, who are in a medical facility covered in strange lesions. The Klingon introduces herself as B'Elanna, and the pair are quietly greeted by the planet inhabitants. They are the Ocampans, and they live in a vast underground complex created by the Caretaker, the entity on the space array. It occasionally sends visitors like Tom and B'Elanna for purposes unknown. Neelix leads the crew of the Voyager to the planet. They run into Kazons, rescue Kess, get underground, rescue Harry and B'Elanna, get back to the array, find out that the Caretaker is a visitor from another galaxy who inadvertently wrecked the Ocampan environment and is there trying to make good by procreating before it dies to continue the task. That's what the medical experiments were all about, but the Caretaker gives up the ghost, destroys the array, and the Voyager are stranded a gazillion miles from the Federation. Can these Starfleet straight edges and Maquis marauders make the 70-year journey home without driving each other crazy? Dun, 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 the Voyager. It's the Voyager. That's the theme to Voyager, right?
Think so.
Voyager.
You got it right. When Janeway picks up the cigar with the umbrella.
Voyager. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And Harry Kim is knocking on Tom Paris's quarters door. Yeah. That whole thing.
So some years later, they got lost in the Delta Quadrant.
That was, I hope you're keeping all of these because these are really good.
I mean, that one, I honestly, I know I try to just do it up to a certain point, but I felt like since we're talking about the premiere of a new series, it felt like I needed to just go to the point where the series kind of starts. This is all prologue at this point. So I always try to bring it to like a crescendo, but it feels like the crescendo comes during the final scene of the final act. So here we are. Last scene. First impressions.
Christopher. Voyager. Now, you don't live in Voyager like I do. It's not your security blanket. It's something that you've dipped your toe in here and there. But actually sitting down to watch the pilot episode, the full movie, what were your first impressions?
I did not hate it. Ooh. And I'm a well-known Voyager disparager in these here parts. So I was looking forward to this kind of like you look forward to doing homework. And I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
It wasn't as bad as I anticipated it to be. I made it through the corn on the cob scene without falling asleep. Ooh. I will say this. I kind of did doze off towards the end, and I had to rewatch the last 25 minutes because I missed an important scene with the caretaker and his whole deal.
Playing the banjo.
But playing the banjo, yep. But I got to tell you, I felt better about these characters than I ever have after watching this. And I guess we can get into all that stuff. So how about your first impressions? Yeah, because you live here. So
I do. I exist here in Voyager. I'm glad you made it all the way through. Falling asleep at our age isn't necessarily indicative of how we feel about something. It just, it gets late. We get tired. I fell asleep last night during Spaceman with Adam Sandler, that Netflix movie. Have you seen that?
No, it's an Adam Sandler movie, which is almost a guarantee that I will not see.
It's not a comedy. It's a drama based on a book. You probably want to read the book.
The last Adam Sandler drama I tried to watch, Family Jewels, I could not get through because he played such a reprehensible scumbag in that movie, and I couldn't.
I started it, but 10 minutes in, I didn't finish it. Punch Drunk Love was okay. But, he tries every once in a while. But this one was good. It was basically Hail Mary. It was Hail Mary.
That's my Adam Sandler.
Yeah, it was Hail Mary, but it was based on a book written before Hail Mary, so it was interesting. First impression.
Okay, so you're telling me that the Spaceman thing.
Yes,
you want to get to first impressions, but now you're bringing up Andy Weir titles.
Well, this is an intentional tangent, probably. Yeah,
gotcha. So because you sent me Hail Mary, I think you sent me Hail Mary.
Yeah,
you sent me that in Artemis.
Yeah, I sent you that in Artemis. Probably a couple other, but I sent you the hardcover. I don't know. Sometimes you like soft paperback. Sometimes you like hardcover. I don't know. Depends.
You sent me this. You sent me that one.
It's still wrapped. Oh my goodness.
It's still wrapped. I'm reading 3 Body Problem now. I'm having trouble getting through it. So,
all right.
Imsadi's next on the list.
When Spaceman came out, Andy Weir posted on his social media and he said, "They didn't rip me off. It's very similar, but it was based on a book written before I wrote my book." So
okay. Gotcha. Good on you, Andy Weir.
Yeah, he wanted
keeping
to
himself
set the record straight. Yeah, but Hail Mary is coming out in theaters. It's going to be Ryan Gosling, I think, is playing the lead.
He's so dreamy, Ryan Gosling.
Yeah,
dreamy Ryan Gosling.
My first impressions of Caretaker is it's a really good pilot. It really sets up the series and gives you everything you need to know to keep going. It's intriguing. It's a little weird at times because of the picnic and the banjo people. And there's they're in a new quadrant. So basically you're getting introduced to everybody. our crew, the people we're going to get to know, and then all the aliens and the environment and the setup. I think it was very well written. They left some breadcrumbs in there that they pick up on later on, and one in particular, mentioning the other caretaker that left. That to me, that was a good, like, if they need to end the series early, that would be a good way to get back home quicker, is because somebody out there has the same technology that brought them there, even though Janeway destroyed the array.
Gotcha.
But it's like meeting all my best friends again.
Okay, well, that's cool. I mean, so I'm happy that it still brings something to you when you watch it. I mean, but before we dig into this magnificent corn on the cob feast, should we tell people how they can tell us what they think?
That would be amazing. I want to know.
Caretaker. Yeah, I want to know too. So everybody who's out there listening or watching, you can find us on our main discussion area. That's patreon.com/Treksploration. You can also hit us up on Instagram at Treksploration Pod, X us at Treksploration. Send us a good old fashioned email at TreksplorationPod@gmail.com. Give us a phone call, 707-847-6682. That's 707-847-6682. And you can drop us a line at P.O. Box 542, Bayport, New York, 11705. That's P.O. Box 542, Bayport, New York, 11705. So we want to hear from you, because this is another event in Star Trek history. Is Voyager polarizing? I think DS9 is more polarizing than Voyager.
I think so. I think most people, at least people I know, seem to love Voyager. You're the only one that wasn't too into it that I've ever met and heard talk about.
All right. I think that you live in sort of a insulated existence, maybe, with all of your other, go off with your Voyager friends. Go off then with your Voyager friends. I guess
Voyager friends.
Right. We should be thanking our current Voyager friends, our crew of intrepid Treksplorers who are voyaging with us on this voyage with us. That includes our cadet, Listen Linda, our lieutenant commanders, Scott Seligman, Cosplay Dad, One of All, and Fantasy Fan, and of course, everybody salute for the Captain on the Bridge, Captain Charles from Texas. We thank all of them and our other patrons who have joined for free on the Patreon site. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing here on our YouTube channel. And, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think about Caretaker. We do have some feedback. I saved this feedback because it was due from our last bonus episode about Emissary, which was the DS9 premiere.
Okay.
So we heard from our latest and greatest supporter, Listen Linda, the cadet, and of DS9 Emissary, she writes, I never got into DS9. Are you going to wait until you're done with TNG before you start rewatching the rest of DS9? I don't know what we're going to do. I think that we're going to cycle through the ancillary series one at a time. So when we get through the premieres of all of the different series, maybe then we'll go back. So we'll eventually hit the second episode of DS9 in about 6 bonus shows or something like that.
Depending on which series we decide to do. I think we decided that the animated series will go with the original series, kind of like a season 4 of the original series. I really want to do Lower Decks. Prodigy, I'm hit or miss on. I like season 2 more than season 1, but that's me. Never want to touch Disco again, really. Love Strange New Worlds, so gotta do some Strange New Worlds. I think we just keep going, kind of like Kramer running out of gas. We see how far we can go.
Yeah, and we do have to do Enterprise as well.
Enterprise is the next bonus show, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So yeah, Linda, if that answers your question, we will eventually get to the rest of DS9, but it's going to be in a stutter stop kind of way, as we do TNG. It'll be concurrent. So
yeah, a lot of episode 2s, then a lot of episode 3s, then a lot of episode 4s, and so on.
So we'll see how that goes. We might change it up. Who knows?
Yeah, I think this is a unique approach too. I don't know of any other Star Trek podcasts, which I found out there are some more, but I don't know of any other one doing it in this order.
I mean, They ripped us off already, those pretenders.
Yeah, people saw Treksploration and are like, we could do that,
Holy,
and they just happened to
holy
start
crap.
before us. It
How dare
happens.
they? How dare they?
It happens. So that was nice. Thank you, Listen Linda, and thank you all
Yeah.
our crew members. And I think she mentioned us on YouTube with our last episode. What was it? Haven, and she said, "Great to have you back," because we were away for a little while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And our captain, our illustrious captain, the esteemed Charles from Texas, responded to Listen Linda's query about DS9. She had said that she'd never got into it, and Charles writes, highly recommended. The first season can be rough to get through, and the second has some dull moments, but once you hit the season finale of season 2, it takes off. As it goes, much more diamond than rough. The last season, or at least the last half of the last season, feels and watches very much like a modern streaming show.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess because it had just become so serialized at that point, they decided to do a 10-part season finale. 10-part. So that's pretty much whole half of a season right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it really did pave the way for, I think, a lot of the modern sensibilities that we see in TV now. And DS9 will, once again, I'll just gush and gush. Remember we said this? Gush, gush, gush.
Gush, gush, gush.
Gush, 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 gush.
So you were gushing about Emissary. Now, how do you, not being as much of an aficionado on Voyager, how are you comparing the two pilots?
It's tough because I know DS9 very well, and I have such fond memories of it. Watching Emissary was kind of like coming home and realizing that it was even better than I remembered in many respects. So again, there's that bias there. But I will say this. You know that I have the bias against Voyager,
mm-hmm.
and I expected this pilot, especially since I've fallen asleep every time I watched it right at the corner on the cob part, to be problematic. It's always been my whipping boy.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, knowing what I know about the way Voyager progresses, I found that this pilot had much more promise with the characters and the dynamics that they tried to set up, and the whole Maquis versus Federation, being lost, being at odds, having to rely on one another. But from what I've seen of Voyager, they never capitalized on any of that. They went to being a big, happy Starfleet family almost immediately. And I mean, there were some other issues that I had with the Kazons and with
the hair. The hair was horrible.
Yeah, some of the no, I think the hair was the best part, man.
You like the hair?
Yeah, there. I mean, I thought that was your inspiration for your hair.
I don't know. I have many inspirations. One of them, have you ever seen the movie Millennium? About where time travelers from the future steal people from airplane crashes before they die.
That had like Cheryl Ladd in it or something.
Yes,
yeah,
I like to do my hair like her. I try to do that, but less perfect and more messy. And then, of course, we got the David Tennant a little bit going on. So it's a combination of those two, I think.
That was well, you'll always be a Kazon to me.
Oh, thank you. I think.
So.
if I had one problem with Voyager, it was the hair of the Kazon and Kess's hair. That short hair wig on Kess.
Oh, it's so bad.
So bad.
So bad.
So bad. Yeah. Anytime she's really good in something, it just takes me out of the scene because I'm like, oh, this is really good. But that hair, oh my God. And like it doesn't make sense. This is kind of a intentional tangent, but it's within the show anyway. But like I guess the thinking was she had short hair because she's only like 1.5, 2 years old at this point. But she's a full-grown humanoid. So if her whole body can grow, her hair should have grown as well. I don't know. Maybe it is just a choice and one that I didn't like.
I was going to say, is that your retcon of her hair, or is that like canonical that
I'm thinking
the hair only grows at a certain?
That I don't know. But I'm thinking, why else would they give her such horrible hair when she had beautiful hair underneath that? And we see it in a couple episodes, I think, where they like flash forward to the future and they're bouncing around and she gets to use her natural real hair. And much better, I think.
They fast forward to the future 6 months from now when she's really, really old.
Yeah, well, I like the original concept about the Ocampan and Kess because they were going to live. She's going to live 9 years. The series was expected to take 7 seasons. So 7
She's
years
got
basically.
9 years. That's not really how the song goes, but
And we meet her and she's about 2, almost 2 maybe. I'm not perfectly sure, but I think the idea of having a character that is basically new to the everything and then going to be die of old age by the end of the series was a great idea. It just the actress had some personal problems and they just couldn't finish that storyline.
yeah, I mean that to me struck me as one of the weirder parts. And as we do go on with Voyager, I'd be interesting. Listen to me. I would be interested to see how they play with that concept of her aging, and how is it not creepy that she's essentially 16 or 18 months old and she's already in a romantic relationship with Neelix. But time is relative and maturity is relative, so
That's why
it's
Neelix gets a lot of hate, and I don't agree with that. I'm a fan of Neelix, and like for humans, it takes us a good 25 years to become who we ultimately are. At least 25 years until our brains fully developed, we can take care of ourselves, and we're pretty much us. Now, if another alien species only lives 9 years, and they're the same person we would be at 25 when they're 1.5 or 2, that's just they're better at being a life form than we are, and we shouldn't hold our prejudices and our expectations of time against them. So I'm not on the Neelix hate train like other people are. Because yeah, if he was dating a 1.5 year old human, that would be absolutely horrible. But he's dating somebody about 20 something, in relative
yeah. And
years.
yeah, and again, we're talking about relatively relatively, I'll say that
Relativity,
again.
that's a good one.
Relativity, yeah, we're talking about relativity here. And it reminded me of one of the vignettes in the book Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman. And there was one where they posited that there was either a universe or a person's lifetime lasting a day, and whether that meant that 2 billion years was compressed into the span of one day, or that one day lasted 2 billion years, it made no difference because time is all relative.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's kind of the idea that they're going for. But when you have somebody that ages so rapidly in comparison to the rest of the people around her,
Mm-hmm.
it it's unfortunate that they weren't able to
Mm-hmm.
play that off, because we know that Jennifer does leave the show. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
I like a little bit further on in the series. They meet some moral competent, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But that have managed to live into their 20s, almost 30s. So I like that they changed it up a bit to where if they were going to keep around and they were going to go on for a while, that they could. But
mhm.
an interesting character.
So
We meet a lot of new characters. You want to go character by character, like in introduction
that's
order?
the way I was thinking about it, because I kind of gave up the plot. This is what threw me a little bit in
Mm-hmm.
deciding how we should talk about this, and why, as you being the host, I thought we'd follow your lead. But a lot of this was character drop story, character drop
Mm-hmm.
story,
Mm-hmm.
character drop story. And on the whole, all it had time to do was introduce the characters' names and maybe their functions
Mm-hmm.
on the ship, or their potential functions on the ship. Like in Valana's case, we still have no idea who she is or what she's supposed to be doing. And they didn't have a whole bunch of thematic stuff to dig into, because it was just so plot heavy. There was a little bit of like a Star Trek message in there, very, very TOS kind of Star Trek message in there. But so I think, yeah, I guess that's a very long-winded way of answering your question, and saying maybe character by character is the best way to go here, because we're already discussing Kess and future things in the series. So we're not necessarily committed to doing story beat by story beat,
No. What was the message that you got out of this episode?
It's one of the Star Trek messages that is pounded on again and again and again, and I guess it's with the Ocampans. The fact that they have to be set free from this coddling prison that the caretaker has trapped them in, so that they can live in adversity and live life the way it was meant to be lived, so that they have some chance to grow with the with the strife. And I think that I wrote it down here. Give me a second. Yeah. Basically, the need for the Ocampans to face adversity and grow was essentially what they had said there. So that goes all the way back to TOS. Like, that is one of the prevailing messages that comes again and again and again, right from the cage on.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be kept. We need to strive. We need to face hardships and dangers in order to keep growing as a series. And it was the same thing that we talked about with Hyde and Q. And who's to say when we've evolved to the point where we can take these powers? No, we need to toil more, decides Picard, because that's the Star Trek way. So the same thing with the Ocampans. They lived 19 years. They've been coddled their entire lives. What are they going to do out on that surface? The Kazons will eat them for lunch. So it's like, but still, no, the Caretaker is kind of misguided here. He's got to let them be who they're going to be, even though he destroyed their ecosystem.
Yeah,
and I guess maybe there's a global warming message in there too.
Maybe he feels very guilty and responsible for ruining their world. So I could see where he would want to help, but that got taken a little too far to where. And it's interesting because it's like a godlike entity. It's like their god, but it really exists. It's there. It's a person actually taking care of them, an alien actually taking care of them. The one thing that kind of bumped me about the whole thing is the water thing. Like, there's no nucleogenic particles. Is that right? Is that what caused it?
I figured that was like techie the tech nonsense.
But the Kazon living on the planet, how are they living? Because humanoids are like, what, 60% at least water? So how are you going to live day to day on a planet like that with no water and survive? I don't think it's possible.
I feel like there's got to be deposits of water somewhere that they can find. Otherwise, like you said, it's impossible. What threw me about the Kazons was they're living in this Mad Max dystopia.
Mad Max, totally.
In like this desert, hide tents, fighting over the most basic of resources like water. And then all of a sudden they have this huge ass ship that can beat Voyager. It's like, where did that come from? How does this scrabbling in the dirt society that can't even produce water have these warp capable ships that are these dreadnoughts that are insanely powerful?
And water is the most powerful thing they have. They're the most valuable thing that they have, and yet they have spaceships and they can go to other planets and get as much water as they want. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they needed to have another villain, but they didn't have time to introduce them.
Mm-hmm.
And from everything I've read about Voyager, I know that most people watching this is chapter and verse. And catch up, Chris. Welcome to the party, pal. Like, the Kazons were supposed to be the big bads for the series. They were introduced kind of like the Ferengi in Next Gen were supposed to be the big bads. And they apparently show up a lot in the first season. Because you have made an enemy today.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
and so, that's the thing too. They're traveling pretty much at high warp speed to get back to Earth, and yet they keep meeting the Kazon. So how? And like the same characters over again. Are the Kazon all just following along, or how does that work? Or is it maybe the detours that are built in that kind of explain it? But that's the problem especially with Neelix, because he comes on at the end as their guide. And when we first meet Neelix, he's just like getting scraps to salvage debris and has never seen as much water as taking a bath. He doesn't know what a bath is. And yet, like 5 seasons on, Neelix is still introducing Janeway to people on their 70-year journey. So there's some things that don't quite add up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problematic premise. In the fact that they have to always be moving because their journey home is the core of the show. But then how do you build any kind of steady continuity in with that? It's almost like, Lost in Space. At least they were planet side for that. And the aliens always just came to them, whether it be like a weird mad scientist or living vegetables. And they were in one spot. So with Voyager, like you said, I mean, 4 days later, they should be so far beyond the Kazon's influence that it makes no difference. I mean, you're literally talking about 1,000 light years.
Easily, yeah. So how big is the Kazon territory?
Right.
And so we get the Kazon, we get the Vidian, and then we get the Borg. And the Borg is pretty much the rest of the way home because they occupy so much space, and that makes sense. But the Kazon is kind of like a little bit of hand wavy. All right. So basically this episode is You Son of a Bitch, I'm In. You know, where they go and collect everybody to team up for this mission.
You son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch, I'm in. So there's handshakes and people come aboard. And it's weird for me because they're just going into the Badlands to find out what happened to the Maquis ship and Tuvok that was undercover with Chakotay. And it seems like a mission that if they were in space already, they wouldn't stop to like collect a crew. They would just head that way and try to find them. So that's a little weird in the premise, but you have to introduce new characters, and this is a good way to do it. I think we get to meet, first of all, we meet Janeway a little bit, and then we meet Nick Locarno. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I have to say, I remembered one thing about Voyager that turned me off to Voyager, and this is the most superficial thing of all, but Kate Mulgrew's voice is so goddamn annoying.
You don't like it?
I can't stand it.
I love it.
It grates on me every time. Just her delivery and just the pitch of her voice drives me up a wall. Really? So I remember all of a sudden, some of the more visceral dislike for Voyager came back. That being said, I have grown to like Janeway quite a bit, and that was even before the resurgence of the character in Prodigy. I came to realize what she represented, and I came to realize how hard Kate Mulgrew worked at building that character into a force in her own right. And Janeway has the distinction of being the one captain whose actions I never agree with. Every time I watched it, way back when, she would do stuff and I'm like, you are an idiot. What are you? Oh, it worked out. You know? So again, then you come to realize that maybe not everything is written for you by people who are trying to reach you, but it doesn't diminish what's on screen. It's just that you have to expand yourself to accommodate what they're trying to do. And this is what I've always said. When you watch something, you have to approach it on its terms, not on your expectations. Otherwise, you can't give it a fair shake. And that's something I never did with Voyager. That was my one blind spot. I approached Voyager as this is going to suck and it's not going to speak to me and I'm going to hate it and I'm just going to shit all over it. And I'm glad that we're doing this now because it gives me an excuse, a reason to really go through with less of a judgmental eye, but a critical and accepting eye. Accepting yet critical. How about that?
I like it. You're open.
Or critically yet accepting. Either way, it all works.
Yeah. We're the opposite with Kate Mulgrew. I love her voice. I'm very much into voices. Like I'll be more attracted to somebody from their voice than their looks almost sometimes. The voice means a lot to me, and I'm not sure why. I even like her audiobooks that she records. So I guess everybody's different. But I think the second time around, they chose the right actress for the role. I think she's really good in this role. She's strong, sensitive, vulnerable, and intelligent, and very powerful. So I love the character all around. You got to love that she's a dog person, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say that she has the dogs and she's in a committed relationship, which is also new for a Starfleet captain in our experience. So I like that. She does show some vulnerability with Tuvok. I like that when she was like, how do I rescue them? What are we doing here? And that is again different from the Starfleet mold where you just have the stiff upper lip captain that's leading the crew. I'm Captain Bones. That makes it my fault. And it was, again, something very different than we had seen. So I laud them for giving us a captain that's a little bit more three-dimensional here, seeing that she has a life outside of her captaincy, that she does not only have to adhere to the mission, but can be concerned and even feel guilt for the way things break, even though it might not be her fault. I mean, she was just following orders. She was going to rescue that ship. She got to where they were. She just happened to be swept up in the same fate that they did. So she didn't do anything wrong. So that's another criticism you hear about Janeway. Oh, well, she got her crew stranded. But I guess maybe because she blew up the array at the end?
Yeah, she
Is that
chose
what
to
people
blow up
say?
the array so the Kazon wouldn't be able to destroy the Ocampan people.
Right. Right. So
she
I'm
chose
just thinking that,
she chose the others before themselves.
right. And that's very Starfleet. I mean,
Mhm.
that's very noble because now she's upholding the Prime Directive. Even, again, they have like the Prime Directive chat, and Tuvok is like, I don't know if that applies here because we've already interfered. We're already a factor in their society. So interesting stuff. You had asked about Paris as well, with
Yeah,
Janeway picking up Paris.
Nick Locarno versus Paris.
Right.
Distinct but the same. Legally distinct, but basically the same.
I have to say, I enjoyed Robert Duncan McNeil's performance here. I like the darker Tom. I like the fact that I don't know that he's got a chip on his shoulder, but he's very cynical at this point. He's very jaded. And it could go to a point where maybe it could be annoying. It could be a little bit over the top, but I don't think he ever brought it there. I think that he was just cynical enough, and you could see that maybe he still had potential, but one bad decision after another has just sapped any confidence he has in himself. So he's at this point, even he's written himself off because no matter what he tries to do, he can't get it right. And
And especially in
yeah,
the situation that he's in and the place that he's in. I like that he gets a second chance uh, for the next 75,000 light years or so.
yeah. So, yeah, I think that of the character evolutions in this episode, his was the most marked. And I feel like they were trying to make him the second lead because he had most of the focus when it wasn't on Janeway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I agree. I agree. A lot was about him, and he had the focus approaching Deep Space Nine. And wow, the whole Tom story is flashing through my head, and I just love it. I think I see myself kind of like Tom Paris. I think that's my gateway in. Um, Speaking more about Janeway, I love how there's like two Janeways. There's the Captain Janeway, how she is in front of her crew, and the Catherine Janeway, who she is in front of Tuvok, in front of Chakotay, and some later on in the seasons as she gets to know the bridge crew better, how she's very much herself. And there's scenes that they include in the series to where she does what she has to do, but then she'll go in her quarters and she'll take a moment, and you can see that it affects her. And it's a good character. Tom Paris, I love that he's hitting on. Was it Alicia Coppola? Is that her name? Where's our cast
I
list?
don't know. The cast list is right there, but
Okay.
which one is Alicia Coppola?
She's the Beta Z that dies. She's flying Tom to
Oh, so another no name.
Deep
Yeah, I
Space
mean there
Nine.
were a lot of dead men walking in this one.
There was,
Yeah.
and she was my favorite. I like that they went to Deep Space Nine to meet Harry Kim. That was interesting.
Yeah, what do you think of Harry?
Love Harry. Unfortunately, he's still the ensign. He never quite he never quite made the grade yet. There was some talk in Picard of making him a captain in season 3, but it just the scheduling didn't work out, or the money didn't work out, or something like that. But he was supposed to be at the table with Seven of Nine and everybody at the end, Tuvok and stuff as a captain, I believe.
Gotcha.
A lot happens to Kim in this, and Kim is kind of almost like the Wesley because he's fresh out of Starfleet, and he's young and everything's new. And he even mentions a few times, "I don't know, this is my first mission." And he has some good episodes, and I like his backstory. And him and Tom together, I love. It's almost as good as Bashir and O'Brien. So I think that's what they're going for.
Well, I think it's funny because I did do that little riff on the Odd Couple during the
Mhm.
synopsis, but they're almost trying to set that up with the jaded, world weary Tom and the wide eyed, gullible Harry.
Mhm.
And I don't have much of an opinion on Harry. as a character, at least not in what I've seen of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to seeing how or if they're able to evolve past that dynamic or capitalize on that dynamic as the series goes on. It's nice. I can tell you this, at least it's nice to have new things to look forward to that I really don't know how this stuff plays
Oh,
out.
wow.
I mean, I have somewhat of an inkling because I've seen other episodes of Voyager very late in the series. So I know they're all still there, but I never had the character investment. I was just watching it to watch it. So unless it was an episode that had like doctor focus stuff, it was really just an exercise in TV watching. It wasn't like I was engaged on a lot of different levels like I am on just about every other Star Trek show.
Did you ever watch Timeless, that episode?
I don't know which one that is.
Voyager is stuck in an ice.
No, I don't think I've seen that.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good Harry Kim. There's one in season 1 coming up soon. That's really good. It's like an alternate reality one. That's a great one. And then of course, Year of Hell stuff and all that stuff. So can't wait to get there. But yeah, Harry Kim, I'm a fan. So seeing him this few days ago was nice. Or, Garrett Wang.
You saw Garrett. Yep.
Yeah, saw Garrett. Didn't see Harry, but I saw Garrett. Saw Captain Harry, maybe.
Oh yeah, so you asked me to remind you to tell a story or something. I don't know if it was for the Trek and Tell. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but I just wanted to put it in your head that you told me that you needed to discuss something related to STLV and Voyager for this episode specifically.
Okay, I will process that. So next we went Harry at Deep Space Nine. It was nice to get the little handoff from Armin Shimmerman as Quark.
Yep.
That was nice. And then they go aboard the Voyager, and half the crew, like you're saying, is dead men walking. And we see the Doctor, and I always recognize him as someone. It took me a while to find out who he was. In the Next Gen episode, I want to say it was the Hunted or the High Ground. Those two always confuse me because it's the same episode back to back, basically. They like wrote the same script twice and filmed it 2 different times.
Okay.
But he's like the main, like, I guess you would say terrorist, beaming in and out of places or something like that. So that's where I recognize him from. The captain, the original first officer, I think I've seen him in other Star Trek things, maybe Star Trek Borg, the video game. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wasn't his name. The only way I know this is because I read some stuff getting the cast list. As far as I can tell on screen, the lieutenant commander who is the first officer and the Doctor are just called by their title. They're not even named.
Oh wow.
And that is very conspicuous when you know that we're heading for disaster here. So it was funny to me that they didn't even pretend to invest in getting to know these characters because they knew that they were going to be gone by the end of the episode.
But that would have been good. That would have been like the Buffy pilot, what they wanted to do originally. It was where you meet a character and you are invested in them and then they die. Especially if they're like in the opening credits. But opening credits weren't as easy to do back then. I don't know if you watched the video I sent you of Michael and Denise Okuda on Tested today. But back then they had to actually physically make like title cards and film them. So it wasn't like the computer system. So it was
it wasn't just like a Chiron thing,
Chiron, yeah.
So it might have been interesting, but that's that old Whedon gag, who wants to kill characters off all the time.
Yeah.
So.
But I think that they did good casting because they looked like they would be part of the show.
Yeah.
Like they had that little bit of gravitas. They weren't like a day player that they said, "Hey, you here, stand, hold a tricorder,"
I hear you. And it was a good bait and switch for what it was. It was odd to me that when they introduced them, they never even gave them like a last name. They never even called them by them. They called them, Commander and Doctor, basically, or whatever. If they did mention it, I missed it, but it was probably blink and you miss it.
The first officer, I found it weird that they're like, brace for impact, and he just starts running across the bridge. Like, that's the opposite of what she just said. She said brace for impact. Of course, he ends up dead. And so does Lieutenant Sati. I used to think it was Lieutenant Scotty because it sounds very similar, but Sati was the Beta Z. That was the pilot.
Yeah, actually, it's written here Stadi,
Stadi, that's it.
Stadi, Stadi.
Yeah, she Coppola. Is it Alicia? Or did you look it up?
Yeah, it is Alicia Coppola. Yep.
Yeah. Big crush on her. I was sad that she died. I would have liked to see some of these characters come back eventually in like an alternate reality version, you know, like where they maybe didn't get sucked away into the Delta Quadrant. That would have been awesome.
The funny thing is that it would have been anticlimactic because we never got to know them in any real fashion.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like Tasha being back for yesterday's
Enterprise. Right. Or if they had somehow brought Jadzia back. It really is just blink and you miss him. And now let's get to the real premise of the show here.
So they get sucked into the Delta Quadrant through the Badlands. We got to talk about the picnic part. I mean, the corn on the cob we make fun of, but you know what I noticed this past time I watched Caretaker? The corn was raw. I guess it holds better on set, but it was just raw corn on the cob.
Yeah, nobody digs into that corn on the cob. Not
it's
one
raw.
person.
It's not cooked.
Yeah.
Besides being holographic, I guess AI still doesn't quite get corn on the cob cooked just right. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe. One thing that kind of bugged me is why would there be this facade of an American Midwestern 20th century, mid 20th century town when we have people from all over the quadrant, even though most of them are human, most of them probably families originate on Earth. Who is this relating to? Where is the Caretaker drawing this particular image from to lull them into this sense of security?
I think they mentioned they take it out of someone's mind, like maybe Janeway's or something.
But because all of Janeway's fantasies that we see are like, you know, she wants to live in Ireland.
That's later on, after she wants to babysit somebody's kids.
Yeah, I mean, she wants to be a nanny in Ireland, and it's always like 1750 or something like that.
And help Leonardo da Vinci to fly. There's many things.
It's like,
she's got hopes.
It's like a Regency romance up in there with her. So
yeah,
I don't know that she's the one. I don't see that as Tom being, you know, there's no clarinet playing there, so it ain't Harry.
They pull a little bit out of Tom because you got the horny farm girl trying to seduce Tom Paris. And Harry Kim, that funny line, she's a hologram. No reason to be rude, right?
That would be that wanton sexuality is a universal attractor for most people. So I don't know that we can put that one right on Tom. I mean,
it was working it was working on him. He would have been in the waiting room for a long time, but everybody else had to go and ruin it. And we're not ready for you yet. It was interesting because I think they were saying the only life form on the array was the Caretaker. So anytime they really interacted with someone, I think it was the Caretaker portraying those characters. Yeah, which I didn't get for a long time, but I finally got that recently. I found
just some avatar of the Caretaker. But it's all him. I mean, and that's like Q level stuff that we're talking about there. They don't really go into it that much. They just said that he was a visitor or it was a visitor from another galaxy. Yeah. Not from another dimension, from another galaxy.
Yeah, which is
so it's almost like Sargon and Thalassa from the original series episode where
basically he was just trying to find somebody that he could procreate with, which is, aren't we all, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, the way he does it, it's a little bit intrusive, don't you think?
So how, by infecting people with this disease, does he see whether or not they're compatible to mate with him?
I was going to ask you that.
Made no sense to me.
I and you're so much more invested in this. You've seen it a million times. I was maybe under the impression that he finds some kind of genetic marker in the people that he abducts randomly where he tries to inseminate them and then sends them off. That's the other question I have. If he is all-knowing and has all the technology there on the array where he can put giant horrible needles right in the middle of their guts and see that they have whatever this X factor is that he needs to maybe procreate, then why would he inseminate them or whatever he's doing and send them off to this baby society that is completely dependent on? Are they supposed to be born there, or whatever he's trying to create? Are they supposed to spring out of these hosts in some way and then be
like
all knowing and take care of them on sight? Like a xenomorph? Or
I was always confused by it because I always thought, like, not paying attention, I guess, you're just enjoying the pew-pews and the story and the characters. But I always, like, my brain always thought that he was infecting them with a virus to cure a virus that the Ocampan had for some reason. But I was totally wrong with that. I was totally wrong.
Yeah. The way I look at it is
mate with them. So is he trying? Yeah, right. He mated with Harry Kim and B'Elanna, like at least inseminated them?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Inseminated them, but it didn't take, and that's where those lesions come from, and it's why they're sick. And because either they're rejecting it or it's actually toxic to them, and of course the Ocampans can't do anything about it. So it's tough luck.
And he's a sentient rock. He's a sentient rock. So I don't know. He's a rock, the caretaker. He's a blob rock. He's a blob, and then he turns
into a rock. Yeah. I think he's more of a miasma. He's more of a plasmatic miasma.
Okay, that was my second choice.
that was my DJ name in college.
So we get introduced to B'Elanna, I guess, next, or I guess Tuvok and Chakotay, because even in the opening, Chakotay and Tuvok and B'Elanna are in the Maquis ship, but we see Tuvok reveal himself to Chakotay on the bridge after the abductions, right? And we get introduced to the doctor, the holographic doctor, all at basically the same time. Everything's going on crazy.
Yeah, it was that was one thing that I really liked about this episode was the pacing. There wasn't a lot of time for giant expedition dumps about I am this character and this is what I do. There really was quite a bit of effective show don't tell here. So they did have beef, they did have confrontations, but it wasn't specifically to introduce a character and the character archetype that they represent. It was all much more organic. I feel like where it was a little bit clunky was the Tom stuff and the Harry stuff, because that was a lot of exposition because we hadn't gotten into the meat of the story yet. But once everything was kicking along, they made it real lean and mean when it came. So, I mean, the EMH just comes up because that's what you do. And they don't even give much airtime, story time to the doctor, except to show you that, number one, he's a little bit brusque, and number two, can anybody turn me off? Did you forget? So
and they don't spend a lot of time with him, like he is just an emergency medical hologram, and you have no idea how big of a part of the series he's going to be eventually, which I like.
Yeah, so that was good, and I really liked the way Robert Picardo played it. Another thing with Edge, and I guess we know now that comes from, was it Zimmerman?
Yeah,
when
Doug Zimmerman,
they showed in DS9 when they showed the archetype, the template, the real doctor on which the image is based.
Yeah, they meet later on in the show, I believe, which is interesting. They do the whole, 3 Marty McFlys thing with Robert Picardo, and they do a really good job at it. I like him as a character. Every time he goes medical tricorder, I pop a little bit because that comes up later on in the show a few times, and so it's fun. Such a great actor and such a great character evolution over the arc of the show. So I'm excited for you to see that all over again. Or at least for the first time, me all over again.
All over again for the first time. That encompasses both of us. So
yeah. So we got Neelix. He's taking a bath. Splish splash. It must have been Saturday night. He's like, maybe he would like a bath, Tuvok said, after Mr. Vulcan. It's funny. He thinks that's his name, not his species. But then what's a bath? So then he takes a bath. I think I would do that if I had a replicator. I would just replicate everything I ever wanted, and just for a few days and get myself sick.
Until you got tired of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it would be like the equivalent of having 9 billion channels and everything you could ever stream and still saying, I don't know what I want to watch. I don't know. You go up to the replicator and you'd be like, I don't know what I want to eat. When you have when you have unlimited choices, soup. Yeah, which apparently you can't even get right anyway. Right?
That was the first scene ever filmed on Voyager was hot plain tomato soup.
Oh well, there you go, Robbie Duncan McNeil kicking things off,
kicking it off. They did a lot of makeup work on Neelix in this. I don't think you see him naked again, really, but he had like a full body prosthetic going on, like a full body suit going on, getting out of the bath.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they did with Doug Jones in Disco. Mm-hmm. When he took his shirt off. They were committed. They were committed to the entire look.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I understand why Neelix would want to go with them, because he was like scrounging for anything and didn't even have water, but now he's on a ship where they have everything. So of course he'd want to go with them.
Yeah, and I think that it's good that they tried to give you some flavor from the Delta Quadrant. I don't even know if they called it the Delta Quadrant before the end of this show, if they established that that's where they were.
Because when they established by the stars where they were, I think they mentioned it once.
Okay. All right. If I missed that, I'm sorry. I think that it was a good choice, maybe even an obvious idea, to have a local guide to be able to give you story exposition so that you don't have to discover anew who these people are every time through trial and error. You have someone that says, oh, that's this species and this is what they do and this is what they're known for, and just steer clear or go, you can trust them or whatever. So I get why they wanted a character like that. It's just that I don't know about the execution, and this is not anything against Ethan Phillips. I just don't know if the character of Tuvok ever really, not Tuvok, I don't know if the character of Neelix ever really did anything for me, aside from be annoying occasionally.
I can't wait to see how that might change as you watch the series.
Yeah, maybe. I couldn't help but draw a parallel between Phlox and Neelix when I first started watching Enterprise. And I'm like, oh, this is their resident Neelix. But Phlox turned out to be one of the best characters on the entire show, in my opinion. So maybe I've only seen bits and pieces of Neelix.
I think that's
it's like seeing, Jar Jar here and there. I don't know.
Context without following his whole arc. I think that Neelix is actually a more well-developed character than Dr. Phlox. So I can't wait for you to see the many faces of Neelix.
All right. Well, hey, I'll take your word for it. Again, I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn.
The character got a raw deal to begin with the whole dating the 1.5-year-old. Because that's going to
they kill her off. They kill her off real good. Yeah, it's okay.
That's going to turn off a lot of people right away, So they're going to see creep instead of seeing who he really is. So,
all right. Again, bold choice. Maybe not the right choice, but they're trying something different.
They changed the makeup between season 1 and season 2 because he had penis nose going on during season 1.
It was it was like Joe Camel. It was kind of obvious.
Yeah. He's a great character. He ends up being a great character. I take these pauses because I see their whole arc and I'm getting affected.
Right. I can see you. You're going on a mental escapade.
Yes. Who else do we meet? Of course, there's a little bit of Tuvok, not much. We get a little bit of his backstory that his family says hi or something.
I like Tuvok here. Tuvok is another one who annoyed me mainly because of his voice and because of Tim's delivery. And maybe it was Vinrick who got this performance out of him, but I feel like Tuvok is one of the first of a long line of people that approached volcanism as more terse than serene. And I'm sure people have heard me make this comparison before, but the way Nimoy played Vulcans and the way Mark Leonard also came up with Sarek, they were so zen. and they were very, go with the flow about everything. Whereas as Star Trek went on and they were doing more Vulcan characters, instead of this serenity and sort of this center, it's all about it's all about them being, quote, emotionless, and that means that they're terse and abrupt and short, and it's basically they just sound pissed off and annoyed all the time, which is the complete opposite of how a Vulcan should sound. And I feel like this was Tim Russ kind of set that in motion.
I would agree with you. And of course, the Vulcans aren't a monoculture, but from everything we've seen, they pretty much are. But I honestly think Tuvok was pretty upset, pissed off to be stuck in the Delta Quadrant for the next 75 years. And I think he's got a lot of hostility about it, and he's keeping it as under wraps as he can, being a Vulcan.
And I guess when I started on that tangent, on that long aside, in this, I think Tuvok was much more akin to that Zen-like Vulcan. He had much softer edges. And it's only as the series goes on that it becomes more clipped, that he becomes... I was actually pleasantly surprised by the portrayal of Tuvok in this episode, because he is worlds away from the Tuvok that I'm used to seeing. And I wish that they had kept some aspects of the character as we saw them here. And unfortunately, I don't think they do, if my memory serves. Again, I could have a faulty memory. I could just have seen what I expected to see and point out the things that annoyed me, like the observer effect, basically. So
they give Tim Russ a lot to do over the 7 seasons, and he pulls it off. He does really good as a character. So, and one thing they did with Spock and Bones, they have that Neelix and Tuvok frenemies thing going on, same as Quark and Odo. I guess that's required in any show now, but they do really good at that. So yeah, it's fun to see Tim Russ and things. It was fun to see him back in Picard, which was great.
So it'll be nice to see how or if my observation bias gets subverted as we go along with some of these characters.
And keep me updated.
Now, one person that seemed a lot more severe in this than she does as the series goes on was B'Elanna, as that she kept on saying her name, like she kept on saying it like B'Elanna.
Wait till you get the faces. I think it's like episode 6 or 7 of Voyager. Wait till the way she talks in that one. Oh my goodness. That's something that me and Rennie make fun of all the time. B'Elanna Torres, I like her. She's beautiful. She's strong. She's a little crazy. If I was Tom Paris, I wouldn't date her. But I do like their relationship. I do have that shirt where it's Tom Paris and B'Elanna when they start to maybe find each other attractive and care for each other.
Okay. I mean, I know that they do eventually, knock boots and hook up.
I didn't want to spoil that.
No. Well, yeah, I'm sure everybody was just spoiled by me. I'm sorry. The guy who doesn't watch Voyager even knows that.
I think anybody watching this has watched every episode pretty much like we have. So I don't.
Yeah.
So. If they're just now getting spoiled on episode 22, they're figuring out the spoiler situation. But
I'm telling you,
her character is good, and the anger is handled differently earlier on in the season than later on in the season. I think the anger comes a lot from her youth, and she was mostly among humans, and so she always tried to hide her Klingonness, hide her forehead and things. So I think a lot of that anger is still in her. Which is smooths down after a while.
It's the complete opposite of Worf.
Yeah,
Worf is always trying to be less, even though he's like more Klingon than Klingon. He is so much more staid and reserved, and he explains it to Jadzia eventually in DS9 as to why he has none of that Klingon exuberance, and it has to do with growing up among humans. So it's like B'Elanna has kind of the same background a little bit, but she went a different way.
Yeah, so maybe they did that on purpose. Now that you said that out loud, it makes me think they said, well, we can't do Worf again, so let's do the opposite.
Yeah.
She's pretty much opposite in every way.
Yeah, and she's only a quarter Klingon, she said?
I'm not sure.
Or half
I think
Klingon. No, she's
half
half
Klingon.
Klingon.
Yeah, half Klingon.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about when her and Tom are trying to have the daughter,
Then that would be
and
the
she's
quarter
all
Klingon.
Klingon shamed, and
Hmm.
they keep on showing the hologram of what their daughter might look like, and
Hmm.
there's no iteration of the daughter that doesn't have some kind of ridges in her
Yeah, and she
forehead, and
doesn't
that
want the ridges
upsets
on her. It's
B'Elanna.
very
Right.
sad. Mm.
Yeah. So self-hating Klingons, man.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but she has good arcs with it too, and she'll learn to embrace her Klingon half. So we'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, this I think is
Barge of
indicative
the Dead.
of
Wow, that's a good one. Okay, keep going.
okay, Barge of the Dead.
Faces,
Okay.
not one to look forward to.
But Barge of the Dead.
Barge of the Dead.
Okay. All right. I think that what we get to see here, I know we haven't discussed Chakotay yet, but
Chakotay.
they
Who
took
I'm
a lesson.
cosplaying next year.
Oh, you
No,
are? Okay,
yeah,
that's
sorry to
right.
keep
We
interrupting you.
discussed that. No, we discussed that. No, I was just going to say that it seems to me that they've taken the lessons that they started to learn on TNG, that they implemented in DS9. Now it seems to me that they've gotten the ensemble feel down right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think DS9 kind of does it too, but again, it takes a while for that to gel. And I saw the same competency here, whereas I wasn't expecting it, because to me, Voyager looms large in my mind as just let's return to the TNG formula, but do it badly. So to see that they had all of these moving parts working together so effectively in this pilot was a pleasant surprise.
I think Voyager probably does the ensemble better than any other Trek series that I can think of. Maybe Lower Decks is just as good, but in the classic, new Trek, whatever the golden era or whatever it is, Silver Age, I have no idea. The 90s Trek. I think because it really seems like with the Voyager episodes, they really go out of their way to cycle through all the characters. They don't ignore any of them. Like in Enterprise, I think Mayweather, what does he have? 2 episodes in 4 seasons that are basically his.
Yeah, and one of them is
really
towards the very end.
Yeah, because Anthony Montgomery is amazing, but we'll get there. Still so handsome. I saw him. Oh, anyway. But Voyager really makes an effort to actually go through every character, develop every character, a lot like Deep Space Nine. But like, yes, there is the captain and the first officer and the bridge crew, but pretty much the 7 main people that are in the opening credits, we get to know a lot about them. I think the one character they fell down on probably was Chakotay. His character was basically ignored after a while, and when they threw out the Maquis storyline by the end of season 1, they didn't really have anything for Robert Beltran to do.
So let's dig into Chakotay a little bit here, because I thought that Robert Beltran did well, but I understand that he became so disenchanted with the character and with the series overall that he became vocally critical of it. And was that while the show was still on? Was he doing that, or was that after it was over?
Not that I was aware of. I wasn't made aware of that until recently. I found out about it somewhere. I forget, but I always felt that they just didn't do right by Chakotay, and I'm not sure why. But looking back, I can understand that he was upset that he wasn't used and they didn't give him enough to do. But unlike Denise Crosby, where she was like, I'm not having enough to do, I'm going to leave. He was just like, I'm making a good money. I'm making a good paycheck. I got a steady job. I'll just stand next to the captain. They don't want me to do anything. That's fine.
But I'm trying to recall some of the Chakotay episodes that I've seen, and all I remember is something about boxing. I mean, that's the only impression I have of Chakotay was some kind of fantasy boxing sequence.
I think his first one coming up, maybe Tattoo. That was one that focused on him. There's a few that focus on him. There's a storyline coming up that focuses on him that I don't want to spoil if you haven't seen it. So
I haven't. So yeah.
So something to look forward to. But towards the end, I don't know whether it was they didn't like him personally or they just failed at writing good story for him. But yeah, he's the only character that wasn't really fully fleshed out, I think.
Well, from what I could tell as the show went on, and I think most people would agree with me. They did eventually settle on a triumvirate for the show, and that's so classic Trek as well. But it was Janeway, Seven, and the Doctor, just like it was always Picard, Data, and I guess Riker in TNG when it came down to it, and like it was always just Bones, Spock, and McCoy on TOS. So maybe it's just a natural way that these things evolve as people start to really like characters and want to write for them. And those were just the three that popped and that resonated the most.
Even though they did that, they still had other like trios that would be, like Tom Paris, Harry Kim would interact with the Doctor, and then would interact with Kess and would interact with B'Elanna. And there was almost like, I don't know, a fully fleshed ensemble, I think, really.
I'm not saying that they didn't have that. I'm just saying that it seems like, again, they have a main three. Yeah. And I don't believe that we got that on DS9. I feel like DS9 was much more ensemble based. It wasn't like the Cisco, Dax, O'Brien show, and we're going to do occasional stories about these other ones. And I feel like, again, Voyager sort of fell into that, especially as Seven was such a wildly popular character. And to this day remains one of the most popular characters in the franchise, with good cause. I mean, Jerry does a great job with it. And
they brought her on because she was gorgeous and they wanted to up the ratings, but she really was a good actress and she really did great with the character.
And that was well, I know we're going so far ahead now. We're talking about a character that wasn't even introduced for like 4 years.
Chakotay.
Yeah, going back to Chakotay. Yeah.
I really like that they did give the character a proper ending send off. Not an ending necessarily, but at least a continuation of a story on Prodigy season 2. It was good to see them do something with Chakotay. It makes me feel better about Chakotay on Voyager, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I guess you can watch it with that knowledge in mind, and it's something that gives you an extra boost when you're rewatching this stuff, having the context of everything that you know is to come, and then now you have prequel stuff or sequel stuff that wasn't there, even in the context of the complete series for 20 years. I mean, we have so much prequel stuff on Strange New Worlds that informs a lot of now what you see on TOS and might make you look at it differently. And you have a lot of now the sequel stuff in Prodigy where, okay, you thought you know all of Chakotay's story, but you can think of that now as you watch this because new chapters to what these characters are doing. So again, the rich contextualization of the broader Star Trek universe, it's always expanding. It's always giving you new ways to look at the same old things that you've seen. So if I can point to anything that's a net benefit of all of the new Star Trek stuff, it's that. It's just that this whole world is that much more dynamic for us now. And so it brings new stuff to stuff that we thought we had seen and done, and there's nothing left to discover here. Oh no, wait a minute. I can start looking at it in this new context. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, if that Prodigy stuff now is going to be sticking in my mind as I watch this.
And it was weird when they first started with Chakotay on Prodigy. I was like, because Prodigy is like hit or miss for me. I like parts of it, but it wasn't my favorite. So when they introduced the whole Chakotay thing, I was like, why did they pull Chakotay, the one character from Voyager who was basically ignored for most of the later part of the series? But looking back and what they did, it makes me think, wow, the writers said, hey, that character was done dirty. Maybe let's do something for Chakotay. And I appreciate that.
Right. Let's get him a send off. And honestly, who else can we afford? I mean, we already got. I'm only teasing, but they had Bob Picardo come back and be the Doctor. I mean, of course, Kate. You know, she's Janeway.
And then spoilers. We won't mention that if you haven't seen it, but go watch Prodigy season 2.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Did you pop for that, by the way, without saying what it was?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Season 2 introduction of a character that we know.
I was not the Doctor.
No. Well, acting like the Doctor, but Doctor Who.
No, I honestly, I still don't know what the hell you're talking about. So we can
Okay,
cut
I'll
all
tell you
this.
off air. I'll tell you off
Okay.
air. So is that all the characters?
Yeah, I think
We
we've
missing
done
the
Balana
seven?
to we oddly enough started with Kess
Kess,
and
the
ended
wig.
with Chakotay. Yeah, it is.
Kess. We seen some things from Kess. I didn't dislike Kess. I just disliked the wig. So but let's focus on the story. So as a movie, I think this is really successful. I think it's a full-fledged movie. Like it seems like movie budget because they're going to they're going to amortize everything over the 7 years so they can afford to do really good pilot. And at the time, all Star Trek shows were going 7 years, so they knew they could spend the money without worrying. And I think they put a lot of money and a lot of that on screen.
I agree. I really enjoyed the scope of this. I like the fact that they were in the Badlands and they had those plasma storms. And even watching it now in SD, I still think it holds up for what you know they wanted it to be. It looked fine back on our regular TVs back in the day, and I have to say that even the standard def came across fine on my HD TV. It wasn't. I feel like Voyager looks cleaner than DS9 does. And I feel like Enterprise also looks cleaner the earlier episodes. I think they started shooting that digitally as they went on. I don't know if that was from the beginning.
Enterprise was filmed, I think the first, I want to say 3 seasons or 2 seasons, and then they switched to HD video cameras for cost saving measures. But the good part is that was always, even the film was done in HD, when they did the post on it. So we have those HD. We have the original series HD. We have Next Generation HD. What we're missing is Voyager and Deep Space Nine still in HD. That's why I'm hoping that this people buying Paramount and merging and all that crap. I'm hoping somebody realizes what they have and they need to preserve it before it's too late, because that stuff is on gelatin, and it's going to disintegrate eventually if they don't rescan it in 4K, 8K.
Well, from what I understand is they can't, what it is, it's they can't recreate those effects. There's just not enough information there. So they would have to do every single effect from scratch again.
Yeah. But even if they just get the filmed elements, scanned in and upgraded something before it's too late. But I'm hopeful now. This episode, when you're watching on Paramount Plus, the interlacing really shows, like mostly with the special effects shots, like the ships and like going in the Badlands. You see that interlacing where you have lines that are like through everything. Whereas like later seasons of Voyager, I think you were in that chat. I think it was me, you, Matt, and Allison, and I was saying how like it looks so good. I think it's like season 4 or 5, where I think they went in and did some kind of AI upgrade with the Paramount Plus ones, and they just look amazing. You could see like a hair on somebody's shirt or something. But Caretaker suffers from the SD interlacing artifacts, and I'm just hopeful one day. But the good part is it's great entertainment, and we have it on DVD. So if that's all we ever get, those copies, that's how we originally enjoyed it. So it's still there, but I remember it in HD.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that also, I think the fact that you don't care about that stuff as much, getting back to just the entertainment value of this
the story
pilot
is so good
and how it worked as a movie. Okay, so you might be seeing some special effects that are a little dodgy, but who cares? Because everything is actually holding together really well. And that's what I meant when I said, newsflash up top, my first impressions, I didn't hate it. Anyway, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. So, I mean, I was really nicely surprised by how well the story itself held together as a self-contained thing that also served as a setup, because that's another danger that you can have with something like this. A pilot is just there to set the stage. And manifestly, that's what this did. That's why I had to write the entire synopsis, because this is all prologue. But the prologue was it wasn't perfunctory. It was so interesting because they used it to build characters in, I think, good, meaningful ways, or at least set up different dynamics that would be able to play out over the next 7 years. and not just be, oh, well, there's a throwaway thing there and there's a throwaway thing there. I think that a lot of the stuff comes back to be relevant.
Nothing bumps me in Caretaker that I was like, oh, they never used that, or oh, they never went back to that, or it all seems like they knew what they were doing when they started this thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, that's been one of my chief criticisms of Voyager, though, is that a lot of reset buttons, a lot of episodic stuff, maybe not a lot of continuity going on. So I'm surprised to hear some of the things coming out of my mouth about
me too,
about
I'm
how solid I felt this was going to be.
Yeah.
I really thought that this was going to be a shit show. I really was just waiting to hate it. And I didn't, and I don't. So go me, yay.
Did the pilot accomplish what it set out to do? Are you now excited to keep going on this journey of Voyager along with them?
Yeah, I think I will be until I get to episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, and I realize, oh wait, this is Voyager.
I don't know. There's a lot of good episodes. Like Next Gen, I got my least favorite episode. I can't think of a least favorite episode of Voyager. I really can't.
There's got to be one. There's got to be one where you're just like,
I'll think about
oh, come on, it's coming up, and you don't skip it. You don't just skip it.
I don't skip any of them. I don't.
I mean, at this point, I give myself permission to like skip Spectre of the Gun because fuck Spectre of the Gun, or the Empath because fuck the Empath.
Oh, speaking of, at the convention, there was Empath cosplay, which is really good.
Oh yeah. Gosh,
there was interesting cosplays. That was one of them.
Was it the woman? I forget her name. She was the interpretive dancer that was in it, or was it the bumpy headed, craggy, plague-looking aliens that are in that one?
It was a woman in the nice dress that didn't talk. What was it? Right?
The interpretive. I want to say Twyla Tharp, but it wasn't Twyla Tharp.
No, she did Moving Out. I watched Moving Out. That was good.
Yeah, Twyla Tharp inspired. Yeah.
I'm excited to go through this one more time because a lot of times I'll skip like season 1. Like I just said, I didn't skip episodes, but I like to jump in, and season 5 is usually my, like, I'll just put on an episode to go to sleep to or something. And usually season 5 is where I like to just hit play and then sleep all night.
Okay.
So I think it gets better as it goes. I think it doesn't lose any steam. If anything, it picks up steam.
Well, yeah. So pleasantly surprised. I'm just going through my notes here, but mainly what I was writing down were story beats because, again, this was so plot heavy. Did you find any messages in this because you're the huge Voyager fan? Aside from the tangential global warming message and the you need to go out and suffer in this galaxy to really make it.
I did not. Looking back at it, to me, there's a little bit of I like what Harry Kim says is I don't let people pick my friends for me. So I like that message to where you make your own decisions about people. And I think by the end, you mentioned it earlier, but it's a lot about Tom Paris besides being about everything else. And it really is almost a Tom Paris episode because he starts off as the prisoner and he ends up where people actually find out who he is for real. And he's able to be himself and not that person who's very combative and pushes people away because of everything that happened. And once they get to know him, and everybody seems to embrace him. So I think that might be a message somewhere. I don't know how I could vocalize that though.
You just did.
Okay, cool. The things that bumped me about the episode, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. Half the crew dies, or a lot of the crew dies, and a few days later they're all pretty much okay with everything. And
yeah,
there was no shuttle or what do they call the turbo pod? What am I looking for?
You're looking for the photon tube.
Photon torpedoes. There's no ceremony. Yeah. Those we lost along the way, and then like a little board of their pictures and people saying stuff. It's missing that beat, I think.
Yeah, no space burials here.
Yeah,
because it's too much story.
It's missing that. Like if it was one person or two people, but I mean it was a lot of the crew. But maybe they're still in shock.
There are a couple of things that bumped me. Number one, this displacement wave basically ravages Voyager. It's like completely, it's a wreck by the time it gets to the array, to the point where the warp core has a minor fracture in it and it's going to blow. And Janeway's down there helping them fix it. But the entire ship is almost in a shambles. Now, this is like one of the newest Starfleet vessels with the biomimetic gel, and they go through great lengths saying what an amazing new ship it is. And it's halfway destroyed as it goes through this field. And then a day later, or 3 days later, when they come back, everything looks pristine and new. So how did that happen? Number one. Number two, if Voyager suffered this much damage and it's the new Federation standard, how did that piece of crap Maquis rating ship survive in any way? How are they not just atomized by the time they get to the array? They're even saying that this is a 35-year-old ship. It's never going to stand up to that Cardassian dreadnought or whatever the Cardassian ship was. So that bumped me quite a bit.
That is interesting. I wonder if, let's see, it's in space, so I don't know about mass, but if it's so small that it's just like flying around like a particle of dust versus like a battleship, I don't know if that's the difference.
You got to figure that stresses are still stresses. And, you know, there's a big derelict ship graveyard, so this is quite a destructive force that the Caretaker is employing every single time, apparently, if this giant ship graveyard is any indication.
And he's just trying to speed date. You know, that's his dating app. He's swiping left and right on people in the Alpha Quadrant.
Right. So I'm going to put my probe in your belly, and either I'm going to send you back to your ship. I'm not going to send you home. So what happens to all the other? You got to. I guess maybe this is a logical thing that we haven't explored. What happened to the rest of those crews? I mean, not all of those ships could have been destroyed. Like Voyager. Say the Caretaker looked through, sifted through whatever crew this was, and decided that there was nobody, or he doesn't want to kill you per se, but what if your ship is debilitated? Where do you go? What if it's one of the ones that's in the junk heap that Neelix is scavenging through?
Yeah, why does he have so much loyalty and feeling of guilt for the Ocampan people, but not the people he's pulling out of different quadrants of space and just abandoning?
Yeah, that's a plot hole. It's not one I thought about right until this very moment.
Yeah,
but
same. I'm sure if you analyze anything, I mean, right, you can find holes in it. But
true.
Overall, before we go to our final thoughts and final rating for Caretaker, did you have anything else in your notes we didn't talk about?
No, I mean, it just, to me, is so plot heavy that there's not much more to discuss outside of the character beats, and I think we took care of those pretty well. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. The only other thing I have written down is how half their ship is made out of explosives, because anytime it gets jarred, everything catches on fire and explodes. And it always made me wonder, like, what computer parts are that combustible, especially in the 24th century? You know?
I mean, Discovery had its very own custom flamethrowers on the bridge, so
they installed the flamethrowers. Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing that is probably glaringly missing from our review of this show is the fact that we have our first female captain in Star Trek history. Well, not our first in Star Trek history, because there have been a couple before this.
Enterprise
Rachel Garrett.
B, was it Rachel Garrett?
Enterprise C, and then there was one. Actually, the first one that we saw, I believe, was in Search for Spock. There was one, or there was one in one of the TOS movies.
Voyage Home, maybe something.
Maybe
like
Voyage Home. Yeah. So we've seen female, but this is the first series that's focused on a female captain. So we want to ask our female viewers / listeners out there, our supporters, please tell us what this milestone in Star Trek meant to you, because we're looking at it very academically, very fanishly, in the sense of how does it fit into the broader Star Trek universe based on our preconceptions of that universe. As women out there, what did this signal for you? And was this a watershed moment? Did you like the way this first female captain was portrayed? Did you dislike the way this first female captain was portrayed? I think that is such an integral part of the story and to the success overall of not just this pilot, but of Voyager, that we'd be remiss to not solicit that part, that point of view, that part of the fandom, to which I feel like this speaks more directly to.
I like the fact that at the time it was a huge deal. The first female captain, she's a woman, first female lead of a Star Trek series. But now it's just, while you're watching it, it's just like, yeah. So I like that in the 25 years or so since it took place, 95, 30 years. Are we at 30 years for Voyager?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
wow, almost,
I was 25. I'm going to be 55. So yeah.
Wow. But I like that as a society, we got to a point where it's like, not even, you don't even think about it. It's just like, yeah, she's the captain.
I agree. And I think that's also maybe a reason why we haven't delved into this stuff, is with Cisco being the first black captain. Like for us, a captain's just a captain.
Right.
So it doesn't make a difference so maybe we do have to put ourselves back 30 years when this was, quote, groundbreaking.
It was groundbreaking, but I think, you know what? I want to say mission accomplished. I think what they tried to do worked, just like they were making the first fully interracial crew of the original series. Now every cast is pretty much mixed up here and there, and we don't think anything about it, and we just expect it and look for it. And if it's not there, it's like weird. So I think they did good, because there's so many now. You couldn't count them how many female lead television series there's been since. So, but she was one of the OGs.
Yeah. So we do want to hear from all of you about that aspect of it as well.
We'll tell them how they can contact us in a little bit, but before that, we have a couple of things to talk about. Who was your episode crush for Caretaker? I'm going to guess not Janeway.
Not particularly. That's tough. I hadn't even thought of that until I just saw it come up on the rundown. My episode crush is Janeway's Irish setter.
Aww.
It's the dog. It's the dog. She's a dog. She's a dog person. I'm a dog person. That's my episode crush. Other than that, I don't know.
I wonder if Mark is going to wait those 75 years.
Maybe he will. Maybe he will. That dog better have some good space medicine, though. If they want that dog to last. By then,
medical technology, maybe. You never know. He might live that long.
You know what? And I'm also going to say, and I don't know why, but I had never really paid attention to Kess as a character. Maybe by the time Voyager got back on my radar, she was already gone. But I never realized, if we're just going to talk about, crush, how attractive Jennifer Lean is, despite that wig. I mean, she looks fantastic in this episode. So maybe not crush, but like pleasant male gaze surprise.
I have an affinity for her in this episode and her character in this episode, because I think it was intentional, and it might change a little bit later, because later on she's more naive and more fresh off the boat kind of. But in this episode, she seems very strong, confident, knowledgeable, calm, powerful, and self-assured. And she seems very wise beyond her years, I think, intentionally in this episode.
Yeah, and somewhat rebellious too, because she's in a compound that's just like, we can't stay underground.
Yeah, she thinks for herself. She's not just accepting what everybody else is going for, where every 4.1 hours they get their meal handed to them. She's actually trying to do something. So I think that fits to where she's gonna go out with the Voyager crew and explore and see what's out there. So I like that about her character. It's a shame that she didn't make it to 7 seasons. All right.
Well, who's your episode crush?
Alicia Coppola. The Beta Z that Tom was hitting on. I always found her intriguing, and I always wanted to see more of her. So
now, was she the same one in the shuttle when they were doing the TMP kind of scene?
Voyager?
And then she was also on the bridge at the helm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, she was twice in there, and she was gorgeous. I had the luxury of, or the fortune of, dating a woman that looked almost like that. So, she's one of my types. So, my episode crush. I always watch her.
She was just missing the ridges on the bridge of her nose.
And there was a 47 in this. Do you remember it? I didn't write it down. I think
didn't notice
Tuvok
it.
says 4.7 years or something like that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, let's see, what else do we have?
The favorite part of the episode.
Yeah, what was your favorite part of the episode? It's hard to pick, probably, but
I have to say how dynamic it all was and how well it fit together. So my favorite part of the episode is the fact that I like the episode.
That's
Odd.
pretty much where I'm at.
And I really liked at the end, I liked I'll get his name here so that we do him right. I really liked the performance by Basil Langton as the caretaker. They so well cast, so sort of just this grizzled character actor that just brings it, and it should be ridiculous, but you actually kind of feel for him a little bit. And there was a certain pathos that he had. So good for you, Basil Langton as the caretaker. You're one of my favorite parts of a very strong episode.
He was really good. He had the thing where he was communicating with Janeway, and they were on a level of explorers and like above everything that was happening around, and they connected. And yet at the same time, he was playing distracted and yet engaged, and that was really well done. So yes, great job by him. Favorite part of the episode is just part? I guess the setup, the whole thing, the excitement of starting anew. You know, the hope it gave me for the next 7 seasons. Just the whole thing was great.
I wonder if it will bear out. All right, it's time for trivia.
I get to ask you, right?
Yes, I asked you during our episode for Haven. So,
okay. Well, why don't we do this? Serenity cleaned up my space station a little bit last time she was aboard, so I have no idea where my other trivia cards are, but I have this.
What is that?
All about Star Trek trivia game.
All right. So are there cards in there, maybe?
I think there might be cards in there. So
some sample questions on the back. We can go with those too.
There we go. All right. So these might differ from those, but I'm sure they're about Star Trek.
Yeah, maybe they'll be, because these scenic cards are pretty remedial. Maybe these will be a little bit more challenging.
Last time I needed it. So we have some trivia cards.
Okay,
looks
cool.
Like we got 2-packs. You down with 2-pack?
I thought it was Tuvok.
And it looks like I have never played it because all the pieces seem to be wrapped still.
That's it. We just destroyed the collectible value.
It was open for some reason. The problem
like
is,
good old Ensign Lynch here.
I go to play these games, and nobody knows as much about Star Trek as me and my immediate family, so they don't want to play. All right, so we'll go with these, and I'll just pull one at random. Oh, they are look, they're still wrapped.
There you go.
Oh, that one's not wrapped. I'll do the one that's unwrapped. And I'm asking you, correct? Otherwise, this would be silly, me getting out trivia cards.
Yeah, because I have mine. So,
all right. So it looks like these have 5 questions on them.
Wow, you got me for 5.
5 questions. All right. Man, I wish this station had better lighting. It's solar powered, and at night the batteries go down. All right, I'm going to do my best.
You have enough juice for that smoke machine.
Well, it's important. All right. Do I have a flashlight?
Where's your phone? Use your phone as a flashlight.
My phone is actually the secondary camera. Okay.
Behind the scenes here at Treksploration.
How were both Kirk and Spock persuaded into letting McCoy go with the Vians to their torture chamber? The empath. Ooh, about the empath. How about that? We were talking about the empath. So how were Kirk and Spock persuaded into letting McCoy go with the Vians? VIANS to their torture chamber.
I think McCoy knocked them out and offered himself up. I feel like that's what happened. Again, I don't really watch the empath a lot.
They were both convinced by the Oh my god.
Get a flashlight.
It's black text on blue background. That's horrible for me.
That is a bad design.
In the good doctor's hypo spray. So they were
Yep.
He hypoed them. Okay, the
He
next one
knocked
is
them out.
black on
Okay.
green. Hopefully that'll do better. What is
Not if you're colorblind.
I'll have to get a flashlight from now.
Yeah, right. Get those glasses that have a little flashlight in them.
Here we go.
Laura bought me a pair
What
of those ones.
is the name, at least as much as we know of it, of the Starfleet admiral who orders Kirk to go to Nimbus 3 in the Final Frontier?
Wow. The Starfleet admiral that offers... I'm just going to say Admiral Nagoya. I don't know.
When I read it, then I remembered it. Bob. Because, when he's wearing Go Climb a Rock shirt, he calls him Bob.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't recall that.
I didn't remember until I read it. Oh, which
Nagora was the admiral I was thinking of. Nagora.
At Star Trek Las Vegas, there was 2 people with the Go Climb a Rock cosplay.
Of course there were.
Yep. Okay.
It's easy cosplay. Okay.
What? But they had the Monster Maroon Velvet thing going on too. But it was open. It was really cool. What was the name for the period in which the inhabitants of Beta 3 were given to blowing off stress via debauchery, violence, and destructive behavior in the Return of the Archons?
It was the Red Hour.
Very good. Very good. 3 out of 3, I think, so far?
No, 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 so
Bob.
far.
Bob.
I didn't get Bob. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Bye, Bob.
Hi, Bob. Okay. Yellow. Black on yellow. I can do this. How old was the NCC 1701 when Starfleet decided to mothball her in the search for Spock?
Jim, the Enterprise is 20 years old. She'd never take that kind of pounding, and you know it.
Very good. Love taking a pounding. All right. 5th question. Who was Khan quoting from when he said, "From hell's heart, I stab at thee" in The Wrath of Khan?
Would that be William Shakespeare?
Try again.
Oh, it would have to be it would be a character, you mean?
No, what author? But not.
Oh, I thought
it wasn't from
Shakespeare.
It's not Shakespeare, believe it or not.
I was
Actually,
Captain
I never
Ahab,
read it.
Moby Dick.
I never read it.
Moby
Actually,
Dick.
I never read
Moby
it.
Dick.
Yeah.
Moby Dick. Moby Dick.
Well, you got 3 right, so I think you
Hell's
won.
Heart, yeah.
Pretty good.
3 out of so usually we have 3. So I got 3. So I'm
You
3
got
for
3.
5, but 3.
Yeah, you got 3.
I can't believe it. Yeah, it was Moby Dick.
So I guess
With
this
my
looks like
last
it's
breath,
all the
I
original
spit
series.
upon thee.
This looks like it's all the original series.
All right,
would make sense.
Those are pretty good questions.
It looks all about Star Trek, but it's just Star Trek, not all of Star Trek.
Right.
But that's pretty cool. I didn't even know I had it until I looked over there.
All right.
All right. So what's
good
next?
Questions. Good questions. You got Trek and
great
Tell.
job.
I think this is you told me that I had to.
What I want to tell you.
You have a Trek and Tell.
I think that's what I was talking about.
That's very special, right?
Yeah. Well, I have many different Caretaker specific. Of course, behind me, if you look on my chain shelf next to Badgie, which is hung there the whole time, is Caretaker 1 and 2 on special edition VHS. We have that. I have it, of course, on DVD in the individual seasons, the isolinear seasons. But I have some specific things just for Caretaker. Caretaker? Caretaker.
Charcuterie.
I have it, charcuterie. I have it on VHS in the individual version, not the collector's edition. But what's cool about this version is it's a first printing, and you can tell, at least this is what I understand, because it's actually a blue plastic VHS tape.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's more rare because it's blue, from what I understand. So neat. I have that on VHS. And I haven't watched this particular copy yet, but I plan to. Now, that's not the special thing. I got 3 things total. Okay. This is Caretaker specific. I didn't know if I was actually going to show this, but then I remembered last minute. Serenity has a huge Star Trek Voyager trading card collection. And
Okay.
so she has this from Caretaker, which is a relic card. This is actually, let me put it so both cameras can see it. This is actually Commander Chakotay's uniform from Caretaker, a piece of the fabric off of his costume.
Oh, wow.
So it says, congratulations. This card contains authentic costume material worn by Chakotay in Caretaker. So it's actually a piece of his Maquis uniform.
That's really cool.
And there are some cards out there. There's some relic cards that say this is fabric from the episode or whatever, but it doesn't say worn by. So it might be just like from the bolt of fabric that they made something out of, but these are worn by. So those are more rare. She's got a bunch of these for different characters, and I'm sure they're coming up. But what I think is really cool and rare and different, and something you might not have heard of, I actually have this in plastic.
I never heard of a relic card before. So
really? Oh, let's just say I spent quite a chunk of change on the 7 of 9 silver costume relic card. And it was, for Serenity. It was for Serenity. Okay, now I'm just going to show you this, and then you're going to have to describe it to the listeners that aren't actually viewing it, and tell me what you think of it. I'll slowly show you both sides. It's unopened from 30 years ago, I guess. It actually has a date on it, Monday, January 16th, 1995. I know what that might be. You peep-in. Do you know what it is, maybe? Any guesses?
I think it is. I'm going to say it's popcorn.
It is microwave popcorn. Star Trek Voyager Network. Microwave popcorn. So
that's crazy.
It smells buttery. So from what I understand, now I didn't know about this at the time. I got this a couple years ago because I just go on eBay all the time. From what I understand, let me read it to you. It says, join us for the 2-hour world premiere of Star Trek Voyager and the launch of our new network, UPN, Monday, 7 p.m., UPN 50. I'm not sure. I guess each market had their own, right?
Yeah. But, so UPN 50, I wonder what UHF channel they got for that.
If you know, let me know. But from what I understand is actually the newspaper. So these came in the Sunday newspaper, and everybody who got a Sunday newspaper got a microwave popcorn in it. And the advertisement was on the popcorn.
That's pretty cool.
Right. I haven't eaten it because it's probably bad.
Yeah. This reminds me of that one time when we discovered that they were giving away like free Toll House cookies in the mail. And then we raided everybody's mailbox in the neighborhood to get all their free cookies before we were so young, we didn't realize that what we were doing was a felony. So you could have robbed everybody's newspaper and gotten, a ton of those things. That's crazy.
But how crazy is that? I think that's good marketing, especially when you had to watch it while it was on. It gives you the channel, what it is, the time and date, and popcorn. And who's not going to eat their microwave popcorn that they got free with their Sunday newspaper?
Everybody loves a good microwave popcorn.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it was one of the biggest premieres ever. Viewership versus how many channels it was actually on or something like that. And then it, went down from there for a while. But
take a look at that bag though. What does that bag teach us? That microwave popcorn technology has not advanced one lick in the past 30 plus years.
30 years. But when I saw that on eBay, I was like, what? Because I got searches. Yeah, any Star Trek Voyager, right? So I think I was looking for the relic cards because I usually get Rennie a relic card for a birthday or whatever. And it came up. And I had to Google it. So I just went down this rabbit hole of what?
Now, if you were a real collector, what you would do is get one from each region that had the specific TV time and channel on there.
No.
Somebody has to have those. It's probably like lining their entire wall, right?
Probably. But when I did watch Caretaker last night, 2 nights ago, I did make microwave popcorn, just not the 30-year-old kind.
I was going to say, and that collection must stink. There must be bugs. It's not a good collectible.
It's not, but how could you not get 30-year-old microwave popcorn that's Star Trek Voyager flavor?
Listen, to each his own.
right?
Yeah.
It reminds me of Bedtimer Bruce. I don't know if you ever watched any Bedtimer Bruce, but we ate like 30-year-old Buffy the Vampire Slayer fruit snacks during it, and it was bad. It was pretty bad.
I wonder if that popcorn would even still pop. I mean, does popcorn? I mean, if
I
you
should have
dried
ordered
out,
two.
right?
I should have ordered two. What do you say?
Well, the popcorn is dried out. Like that's its whole point. So
it has some moisture in it because the moisture is what causes the steam to create the pressure to pop the starch in the popcorn. But I should have ordered two, one to pop and one to one to keep.
Well, I still would not recommend it. Although if we do get an extra one, we'll do a bonus show.
But I thought it was funny about that the popcorn was part of their advertisement strategy, and there was corn in the episode. And I think in the murder
I didn't put that together.
Yeah, in the murder mystery episode, they actually do eat popcorn, I believe, which is really cool when they go to see a 3D movie.
All right. Yeah. I wonder if it was the same popcorn.
They might have had a lot extra, but I mean,
exactly.
To me, that's a genius marketing strategy. I haven't heard of that since before or since.
They're like, write that into the show so we can amortize that cost as well.
We got all these cases of popcorn. I wonder how many are still out there. Who's crazy enough to save their microwave popcorn for 30 years? Somebody did. 28 years.
I don't know. Anyway. People say boxes of cereal too, and cans of beer, and
I do have a lot of Star Trek cereal boxes in my possession.
Yeah.
I do.
So there you go.
So
you.
That's me. That's my Trek and Tell. I kind of like Voyager. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah, I can tell. I can see. I wonder
if you'll get there along with me at some point.
Maybe. Yeah, let's put it this way. I don't think that'll have the abject disdain for it that I once had. How's that?
That would be great. Meet Kate Mulgrew and go, I don't have abject disdain for your television show.
Not any longer, or at least not as much as I once did. Thanks, Kate.
I think I know you, and I think by the time we get to the end of this, if we both survive that long, that you will actually love Star Trek Voyager. So we'll see.
It's just going to be weird not being able to watch it back to back to back to back.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. It'll motivate us to record more often. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, I guess so. It
is quite a thing. There's 970 episodes, some odd episodes, and then we do 2 hours per.
I know, it's crazy.
It doesn't seem possible.
When we might get through like maybe the middle of the third season of Next Gen before we drop dead.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
But again, Janeway and crew didn't think they would make it back to Earth, and might take 75 years, but they started the journey anyway. So we're going to start that journey just like they did.
Okay. All right. I hope I didn't just discourage everybody from listening, but you're all in the same boat, so you might drop dead with us. So, and we're here together.
This might be a generational show. One day, Penny and Rennie might be doing the show. You never know.
Starting Penny and Rennie. I think that's going to be a very one-sided conversation.
Well, luckily Rennie loves Penny. So, all right. So, tell people how they can contact us and send us some microwave popcorn from different UPN stations.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and then we'll do our final thoughts. So,
I don't know. I keep messing up the thing.
It's okay. But since
or something.
Yeah, so we'll just say get us up on patreon.com/Treksploration. Also find us on Instagram at TreksplorationPod, X us at Treksploration, email us at TreksplorationPod@gmail.com, call us on the phone at 707-847-6682, P.O. Box 542, Bayport, New York 11705. That's for snail mail. That'll take 70 years to get here. P.O. Box 542, Bayport, New York 11705. We want to know what you think about Caretaker, Corn on the Cob, the Voyager premiere. And we will be reading those responses and any replies we get on a future bonus episode of Treksploration. I guess that would be the Enterprise episode. So, Albie, final thoughts and ratings out of 5.
I absolutely love Voyager. I think when people say my Star Trek, I tend to say The Next Generation, because that's what I grew up on. That's what I loved. Like, I had already watched all of the original series before I saw Next Generation, but I really felt that Next Generation was my Star Trek. But now that I've experienced all Star Trek, my heart really is with Voyager and their crew. I don't know why, but there's something about it that I felt that I'm a part of it. And this is my Star Trek now, Star Trek Voyager. And this is a great start to a great story, a great mission. I feel like I'm picking up my favorite book again and settling down and ready to go through it one more time. And I can't wait. So that's my final thoughts. And my rating out of 5 is going to be 7.5 bowls of hot plain tomato soup.
Which they can't even get right. And I think I gave my final thoughts a little bit early, but again,
repeating.
Solid beginning, much less disdain for the show than I've ever had.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And I only fell asleep for about 20 minutes this time,
Okay.
and I was able to rewatch before we got back on mic. So, yeah, pleasantly surprised. Looking forward to seeing where this goes now that I have a new appreciation, or at least a new frame of reference context for these characters. And I will give this episode, because I've been beating this drum since day one, I will give it 3.5 corn on the cobs out of 10, or out of 5.
Out of 5.
So
3.5. Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
So ears of corn, 3.5 ears of corn, or raw corn on the cob.
How do you like your corn on the cob? I don't eat it raw. I have eaten it raw. I took a trip to Maryland one time to visit my brother when he was stationed on some kind of military base. And he was stationed with fields and fields of corn. I have no idea why, but the thing was, you would go out in the backyard and just take it off the plant and eat it. And it was so sweet, like candy almost. Raw corn on the cob. How do you eat your corn on the cob?
A lot of times what I'll do is I'll put it on the barbecue, still in the husk.
Ooh.
And then I'll cook it that way. Or if we are going to shuck it, then just boiled. I mean, we don't get very fancy, but what I like to do a lot of times is, if I'm going to make like succotash or something with the corn, before I cook anything, I'll cut the corn off the cob and put it in a casserole dish, instead of getting a frozen corn or canned corn. There's just nothing like the freshness of a good corn on the cob. So anytime that it's in season, I buy it and I utilize it quite a bit. How about you?
I love corn on the cob. When I was a kid, again, I'd go to, I want to say Seaside Heights in New Jersey. And there was this one restaurant. New Jersey. There was this one restaurant. They boiled it, of course. But then what they did is it rolled around to stay warm on this spinning thing. And it would spin the corn on the cob in a circle, but it would also roll the corn on the cob, kind of like hot dogs at the convenience store, but in an inch thick of melted butter.
I knew it was going to be butter.
Dude. And to this day, I eat my corn on the cob probably 2-to-1 ratio butter to corn. I just load it with butter.
I enjoy the butter and I enjoy the salt. A lot of times though, I'll just put salt on it.
Really?
Yeah.
I need salt, pepper, and butter.
Gotcha.
Beautiful. And then after I've eaten all the kernels, I still dip the cob in the melted butter, and I just suck the butter off the...
All right, that's it. Yeah, it's a little much now.
It is a little much, but that's how much I enjoy it. So, but that's when I noticed the corn on the cob was raw in this episode. I was like, that's why nobody ate it. And how are you going to hand corn on the cob to somebody? They're going to be dripping butter and stuff, but there's no butter.
So now we know that this episode is also doubles as food porn for you. So good.
A little bit. Now I want corn on the cob, but unfortunately, Walmart still is not open late at night anymore. Why is that?
Damn it.
I know. Upsets me. I think that's what's wrong with society right now. You can't go to Walmart at 3 a.m. Just saying.
Yeah.
All right.
How do we live?
Okay. So our next episode for TNG, which is our semi-weekly, mostly weekly review we're doing, is The Big Goodbye, of course, because we just did Haven. If you haven't seen Haven, check it out. But what's the next bonus show, Chris?
It's going to be the premiere of one of my favorite Star Trek series, Enterprise, Broken Bow, Season 1, Episode 1.
I'm so excited about Broken Bow. Do you realize it's past midnight, so I don't know what time this airs, but maybe in 11 hours or so, Scott Bakula will be on the decon chamber.
Yes, yes. I saw that article earlier today, and I was so excited to listen to it that I went to the decon chamber and I was looking for it, and it was like, it's not there.
Mm,
And then it said, oh yeah, it's going to premiere on the 11th. So it is the 11th right now where I'm sitting.
yes.
So
I'm in
it'll
orbit
be up
above you.
at some
It's
point.
geostationary orbit.
Yes, so it's now 12:33 a.m.
Mhm.
Eastern Standard Time. So I wonder if this thing has dropped yet. Let's take a look. Maybe we can do a premiere thing. But
Maybe.
they're
I think it's
saying that
usually,
it's the first time in a long time that Scott's talked about Archer.
yeah. That's something I always wondered, because I pretty much knew they weren't going to get Jolene. They talked about Jolene in the Enterprise panel in Vegas, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
that she's moved on with her life, and that's no longer part of her life, and she married one of the 1%, so she's like ridiculously rich and doesn't have to do anything ever, and she's a mom, and she's just enjoying her family time. So we
Well, good
probably,
for her.
if they do a reunion movie, we probably won't get Jolene back. But
Aw.
you very rarely hear Archer talk about it. When I did interview Scott Bakula, which you can check out on the Quantum Leap podcast, it's on our YouTube channel and on the podcast feed on the Quantum Leap podcast. Just Google Scott Bakula Quantum Leap podcast; it'll come up. And when I did talk to him about Enterprise in that interview, he seemed to really loved doing it, and it was a big part for him. He didn't love the last episode, but that goes with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
But
think
yeah.
that goes with most people.
So I'm
So
really looking forward to watching that. And there's a couple Star Trek podcasts I listen to, and they've mentioned that as well. So I think a lot of the Star Trek community is excited to watch the Shuttle Pod One boys talk to Captain Archer again.
yeah, it should be great. And it'll be a nice preface to what we're headed for later this week. So
We're gonna see
going to see Scott again.
Scott in person. Are you excited? Are you nervous?
No, I'm
It's a
not
long drive
nervous.
for you.
Yeah, it's about a 5-hour drive, but
Mm.
I love driving. So, and I go
Mhm.
up to that region of the country quite a bit. So it's a nice little mini vacation weekend for me.
And I think
It's
we're
only a
both
couple of days,
staying.
but it's still.
Yeah, we're both staying in the same area, I believe.
You're staying in the same hotel, my friend.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
So
Hopefully, we
yeah,
both
so
of
it's
us can
going to be
sneak
fun.
away for a few minutes.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get to see Scott again in person. Anyway, meet with him in person like we
Mhm.
did during the Connector. But
Mhm.
even if we don't, it'll be nice to see him reprise Man of La Mancha. And maybe we'll do a quick and dirty episode of QLP too.
Sure,
So
sure.
keep looking on the Quantum Leap podcast feed, all of you dual fans out there.
Yes, that'll be nice.
And we might be talking about some of this stuff up over there as well in
Mhm.
much greater detail.
I'm excited to meet people. If you are going to that, if you happen to be an Archer fan enough to go to New Hampshire from wherever you are, we'll be around. I'll be at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday performance, and you'll be at the Friday performance, right?
I'll be at the Friday, but I'll be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
So I
So
might hang outside the theater
yeah,
just
like
to
you did
meet
for Wicked.
all of our groupies. Yes, like I did for Wicked.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think Brian's looking forward to seeing you again. I don't know if he ever
And
met you at the
I
Leap
know I
Back
met Brian. I
convention,
met
maybe
Brian before I knew you.
at
I
the
met
Leap
Brian
Back,
at the
right?
Leap Back 09. Yeah, he
Mhm.
invited me to Leap Back 09.
There you go.
So Brian and I have met before,
So
and
Brian,
Karen Saxon is going to be meeting us there again. She's one of the
which
longtime fans of the QLP. I met her
exciting.
during the Connector. So
And anybody who watched the 16-hour long live that I did watching season 2 of Quantum Leap, the person who joined me for the longest part of that, when everybody else bailed and slept for the night, strange.
sons of bitches.
Yeah, Stacy. So we'll see Stacy there too.
Oh, Stacy will be there too. Yeah, I met her at the Connector as well. So
And
it'll be
her
nice to reconnect
podcasting
with
partner will
her.
be there, and I believe her husband.
Mhm.
And I think
Cool.
they're driving Brian in, so because Brian's
Wow.
flying to their place, and then they're driving in. So it'll be like a little Quantum Leap reunion, and of course Captain
Great.
Archer. So Star Trek.
So yeah, I mean, so that's what we're doing in real life. We'll be talking about the big goodbye in our podcasting life. We'll be talking about Broken Bow eventually. And thanks one and all for keeping on this journey with us. I'm glad that we've finally gotten to Enterprise, and I can't wait to talk about it, Albie. I can't wait to talk about Dixon Hill for the first time. So
Dix,
it's going
how's
to be great.
Tricks? Can't wait to meet Gloria from Cleveland. All right. For the no, this is Treksploration. For for Treksploration, we were talking Quantum Leap. I got a little excited. For Treksploration, I'm Albie,
and I'm Chris,
and we'll see you next time.
Live long and prosper.